As we scroll down below feedback control, we notice a button called session control. This is where we define how long is the session for the client and how many sessions can they run. First off, starting with baseline, we like to have a 30-second baseline. This is an amount of time in which no feedback is based, and it gives you a comparative sample of before and after the session. We notice that it says 30 seconds before and after runs. As we scroll slightly over to the right, we also get a run length. This is the slices we talked about earlier, where you can take a session and slice it down into smaller parts. So we're going to do our run length at 120 seconds or 2 minutes. Okay, and you notice right below that it says number of runs. There happens to be, in this particular session, 10 runs with a run length of 120 seconds, and then scrolling slightly back over to the left, we remember that our baseline is 30 seconds. So looking at this particular session, you have to keep in mind that this is not a 20-minute session. This happens to be a 21-minute session because we have the 20 minutes of actual training and the 30-second pre and post baseline. It's very important to keep that in mind for your scheduling purposes. The number of sessions, you can go to a maximum of 80, or you can put a smaller number in. Oftentimes in a remote scenario, or if you're using Session Librarian, you may only want 5 or 8 so that it forces the client to keep communication back and forth and they don't just fade away. In the clinic, you may say 40 is the max number I want to run because we definitely want to make sure that they're getting benefit prior to that. As I scroll down, I'm going to see a session type, and some of these options, for instance, the training is if we're doing actual neurofeedback training, which this particular protocol is, but some of the other options such as assessment, in the beginning we had mentioned checking the box for mini Q. If you were doing an assessment, if you select this option, even if you have goes or stops set by mistake, you will not receive any feedback. Okay. Training, of course, you receive the feedback. Simulations often used for presentation purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select simulation so when we get to the training screen, you can actually see what the training screen looks like without having electrodes on a client. Also, we notice to the right here, we have pause between runs. This would be as if you were going to do any coaching or talking to the client in between each run or making any adjustments. It would simply auto pause for you, and then you'd use the space bar to restart. Jumping back to the playback, if we did any saving of EEG to disk and we wanted to review that session, but the client's no longer hooked up, we want to just review the raw EEG, we could simply click playback. Again, we click OK to save the changes and take us back to the setup option screen.